Everyone. Thank you for tuning in and for another great episode of our Fit and Strong podcast. Today, on the line with us is Alex Bush from Physique Development. As you already know, we have another two episodes with team members of the Physique Development podcast with Austin Current and Sue from for their team. And now we have another team member from Physique Development,
Yeah.
Alex, who will be sharing some very helpful information about fatigue management, recovery, and deloads. But before we go into the topic, let me introduce Alex. As I said, he's part of the Physique Development podcast. He's an online coach there doing lifestyle and contest prep coaching. Also, with you and Austin, they provide amazing content through their blog on physique development and YouTube videos with tutorials of exercise execution and great podcasts discussing different topics. Alex started doing fit and basically working on fitness in 2014. Afterwards, he graduated from USI in 2017, and afterwards, moving forward, he has been doing, as I said, YouTube and coaching with the physique development team. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time. It's a pleasure for us. Please let me know if I missed anything you want to add.
No, I mean, yeah, we've been coaching since 2014. We started with the YouTube videos and just kind of sharing our life as college students at the time, trying to balance tracking macros and exercise and those different factors while also working part time, going to school full time. It was a fun little way of just sharing and journaling for us as we got started, and then it's turned into our full time thing. Our we are able to provide jobs for other individuals, which is a beautiful aspect to this, and just the opportunity to fulfill my dream of coaching individuals and those different factors alongside a longtime friend in Austin, and then my wife as well, Sue. So it's a dream come true for me for sure.
That's amazing. So sharing that story and hopefully motivate other people also like ourselves to
Absolutely.
grow our online coaching business and chase our dreams. So in order to do that, we need to manage our fatigue. In all aspects of our life, it's not something related to working out, but when it comes to specifically that lifestyle, working out, nutrition, there is that little thing that's not so little. It's called fatigue, and if we don't manage it very well, in the end, it's a missing piece of the puzzle. So, if you don't mind, let's begin with just describing fatigue and what generally stands for, especially in the with the training part of things.
So with fatigue, I think that we can kind of characterize this as um, symptoms. I think this is the easiest way to kind of break this down for individuals to attach it to sensations that they're experiencing. And so, the best way for me to describe this is that it's going to be lower output from an energy standpoint. You feel like you're dragging a little bit as a whole. You feel as though that you're not recovering well. And what I mean by that is that you're having some excess soreness, just kind of feeling a little bit achy through the joints and those
Mhm.
different factors. You could be experiencing a little bit of brain fog. You could be experiencing some digestion stress and or digestive stress and those different factors. You could also be experiencing maybe some breakouts within your skin and those different things to kind of give you just like symptoms that would be attached to higher levels of fatigue or just simply the initial fatigue and what someone would experience from training. You can obviously experience fatigue from your work stress, from your like studies and those different factors. So you're going to have it come in different waves. And I think that that's a main thing to pay attention to is that fatigue is not only going to come from your data, like your training and those different factors.
Okay, great, thank you. And generally with fatigue, and as an example, we get a workout, and by the end of the workout, if we do our best, we should experience that effect of fatigue and
Yeah.
feel, let's say, exhausted or out of breath. We can like describe this as acute fatigue since it happens directly after the workout. When this accumulates and fatigue gets chronic.
So within it becoming chronic, is kind of an attached to some of those symptoms that I was speaking to initially, with the breakouts of the skin, the digestive stress that you're experiencing, and those different factors. Where when we see it become chronic, it is going to be something that you're overdoing or overtraining, if you will, within the resistance training that you're completing, as well as potentially not getting in enough calories, not getting enough sleep. Um, I would say those are the main factors, potentially taking in too much caffeine, those different things to keep in mind when you are getting to a chronic point of overall fatigue.
Okay, and in the beginning, you touched base on muscle soreness.
Mhm.
Sometimes there are a lot of people that they chase that feeling. Like generally, if the end of the workout or the day after, not exactly after the workout, if they're not sore, basically their workout was a waste. Is that a sensation we need to chase, like after every workout to be sore? And generally, when we are sore, given that we're talking on the topic of fatigue management, should we train, or there is a sensation that we need to be cautious, and if there is a specific threshold of pain that we are can't just overcome, we should like give it another rest day.
Yeah, I think that with soreness is a tough one, because you have to take a lot of things into consideration when looking at when you experience soreness, and why that would be the case. Because you could have soreness simply from the aspect of trying something new in terms of an exercise, or a range of motion that's achieved, or a way that tension is placed on the muscle. That could create soreness simply just from that new stimulus being created. You could also be generating soreness from an accumulation of too much volume, or you're just simply sore from the workout in and of itself. You set PRs, it is a new volume allocation, but you do need to have those adaptations in place to allow for you to progress adequately. So when you're looking at the different factors within soreness, there are components that are going to be useful or necessary, but there are going to be components within soreness, like the aspect in which it's kind of becoming elongated. I don't want to use the word chronic. I guess it could be chronic in terms of just performing session after session
Hmm.
and just not recovering, and just chronically wanting to feel that level of soreness and not seeing any progress in your physique. That could be someone listening for sure. But more so, we're not wanting to see, like, let's say 72 hours of soreness, 3 days worth of soreness. You're still sore from that leg session. You probably overdid it on that day, and so when you get back to that training session, it's probably going to be advantageous to back off of the overall volume. But soreness in and of itself, to get back to the original question, is not going to be the precursor to the best training session in general for you to have. It's going to be something that's a kind of a side effect, if you will, but it's not going to be the thing that you're paying attention to if you had a good or a bad training session.
Okay, great. And given that it's important for us to, at least in my opinion, to change the variety of our intensity and to be cautious in terms of how long we work in continuous like a higher training intensity. Do you feel that even like people that are beginners should be doing some kind of periodization blocks in order to manage fatigue like better? Let's say to have a hypertrophy block, then a strength block, and then like a maybe power block, or they should be in the beginning chasing just learning the exercises, that the motor pattern getting stronger, and after a specific period of time to look into the that specific detail of dividing their training over a period of a month into different periodization blocks.
So for a beginner, I feel as though that it's going to be in their best interest, because the thing with a beginner is that you kind of hear, if you guys are familiar with how physique development goes about program design, and we talk about the different ways of periodization and those different things. Well, for a beginner, more often than not, they're going to be getting all of those stimuli, or all those type of responses at once, because their body is like, oh my gosh, this is so brand new. I've got to use everything I've got to address this stress on my body. And so when we're working out, we're creating stress on the muscle that we're wanting to train. And so when that happens, the body is very inefficient to tailor to that stress. And so what happens is that we don't necessarily need to set a massive periodization or be very specific with how we're undulating things for a beginner. What we need to focus on is proper execution, making sure that we understand how the feeling of how close we're getting to failure, all those different factors, understanding what muscular tension feels like, those different things, and increasing load as we have that adequate exercise execution to allow for us to thereafter, maybe a year down the road, be able to make adjustments or periodization to the training. It doesn't, especially starting out, it's going to be a lot of just figuring out how to move your body properly, as well
Hmm.
as place tension properly, and then from there getting better and better with the loads that we're utilizing to thereafter get into greater periodization, maybe a year or two down the road.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alex. And now let's get into some practical aspects of the fatigue management, since I'm very curious to know what are your like tips for recovery when it comes to fatigue? What do you advocate to your clients, or personally, the second part of the questions, what you'd like to do on your side of training to fight fatigue, to recover faster, and helps you in your training career.
Yeah, I think that this is something that is going to start with food. Food and hydration are going to be your two big kickers here to mitigate fatigue, to mitigate soreness, and those different things. And then the next thing is going to be sleep. And so having really quality, actually, I would probably put sleep first. Now that I'm talking through this, sleep's probably number one of getting your best quality of sleep, making sure that you're in a restful state and not like, for instance, if someone was to be training late in the evening and then try to go immediately to bed after having spiked their heart rate pretty adequately with their resistance training, it's going to be tough for their body to get into a restful
Hmm.
state to actually have quality of sleep. They may be, laying there for 8 hours, but they're not going to get 8 hours of quality sleep. Whereas the individual who probably trains at like in the morning or 9 a.m., 10 a.m., whatever it is for them, and then they get home and they're there from like 7 p.m. until let's say 10 o'clock, they're getting about 3 hours to wind down. That person is going to have much better sleep than the person who gets done training and tries to go to bed right away, type scenario. So sleep is going to be number one. Peri-workout nutrition is going to be big as well. So we want to think about the nutrition around our training with the pre-workout meal, getting an adequate bit of protein at that time, 20 to 30 grams at a base. Carbohydrates being roughly between like 40 to 60% of that day's intake being in the morning there. I'm sorry, not the morning with your pre-workout meal,
Yeah.
and then keeping fats pretty moderate to low on that front. Making sure hydration's in a good place, 20 to 30 ounces of water with that meal. And then the same would be replicated within that post-workout meal. And if you've got the carbs, if you are living a luxurious life of having the expendable carbs that you can have intra and have maybe 20 or 30 grams that you're willing to allocate towards some Gatorade or whatever, like a sugary carbohydrate based drink during your training, that could be another way to mitigate overall fatigue and facilitate recovery and those different factors. So nutrition and sleep are going to be your big drivers. And then also it's going to come down to the aspect of having quality training and those different things. And you can get into the nuance of getting your body into a restful state with some different supplementation and those different factors. Things like theanine can be helpful there, as well as taurine. Those are going to be two great tools to
Hmm.
utilize post training to allow for your body to get into a restful state. Magnesium is another great one, where when we look at magnesium, this is something that is going to be very easily depleted by stress. And so we're placing a lot of stress on the body when we're going in and training legs, hitting squats, hitting deadlifts, getting in that leg press, getting in the hack squat, lying leg curl, leg extension, a lot of stress on the body. And so replenishing that magnesium is a very pivotal piece just to your overall recovery. So I would say those three supplements are big too: the theanine, the taurine, and magnesium. Um, for instance, the theanine could be like 100 to 200 milligrams. The taurine could be roughly 500 milligrams. And then the magnesium could be 200 to 300 milligrams, or 100 to 300 milligrams would be kind of a good window to be in. And you'd have that once you're like with your post workout meal. It's not like you've got to, as soon as you finish that last set of cable curls, that you've got to sprint over to your bag and immediately take those three supplements right away. It's okay. You can wait till you get home and get situated, make your meal, and then have the supplements at that point with the meal.
So we are not missing the anabolic window if we
No,
don't take them
no
right after.
anabolic window. No.
About magnesium, I wanted to know, in your opinion, you said take it after workout. Do you feel that taking before bed has any benefits if we like keep the magnesium intake for the after before the bed? Sorry. Uh, do you think that would be better since help us like relax and improve the quality of our sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that magnesium is one that I like to use post training and I like to use before bed.
Mm-hmm.
So I may have 200 milligrams post training, which I'm generally training at like noon for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
then in the evening before bed, I'll have maybe another 100 or 200 milligrams. Just with magnesium in general, you have to think about all the functions that it's being utilized within your body. You have it from a muscular function perspective, which is obviously a big component within your body, but you also have it from a brain function standpoint as well. And within that, with like your work and with your just day to day life in general, you're expending or utilizing a lot of that magnesium as a whole. And provided that you're having a good source, because like magnesium glycinate is the source that I generally recommend to clients, or the form, I should say, of magnesium, because it's going to be the best absorption form to my knowledge from a research standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to have cheaper options than magnesium glycinate, such as like oxide or citrate, but those are going to work more directly on the GI tract. So they may work as like a stool softener or something along those lines, rather than working on the muscle belly. So that could be a little bit more of a disruption to your sleep
Okay.
potentially than you actually getting quality of sleep with like something like a magnesium glycinate or something like that.
Okay, I might need to experiment with that since currently I take all my magnesium before bed, so I
Okay.
might need to split it once after workout since I train fasted early in the morning, and I would like to check if that will make a difference. Since currently after workout I only take like ashwagandha. During
Mm-hmm.
that specific reason, to put my body from sympathetic to parasympathetic state, so it gets relaxed, absorb nutrients better. So our followers, I think that's a hint from Alex here about magnesium. Like try taking before workout and sorry after workout and before bed. Split it in two and see. I'll definitely like experiment on that and give you feedback in a
Yeah.
month to let you know how I feel. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so and about recovery, do you have any favorite tips of yours that are helping you in your training career? Anything you like to do, even like if the most OCD thing?
um, I think the biggest game changer for me is that I do sit at my desk a lot
Hmm.
throughout the day. And so the big thing for my recovery is getting movement, not sitting all day. I think this is big. So tracking my steps is a big one. I always notice if I'm getting under my allotment of steps throughout the day. So for me, it's 8,000 steps a day is kind of like my threshold of I know that I'm doing enough throughout the day, and getting up and taking the dogs on walks and those different things. And so um, movement is big, and then getting some static stretching done after my training is another big one. Like for example, within leg training, I'm in a very hard lower body, or I'm a very hard training phase at this moment, but the lower body sessions are pretty tough. And so I notice a big difference when I go through my static stretching after the training for like 15 or 20 minutes of really just letting myself stay in some like holding in the stretches and those different factors, going through some breathing patterns and those different things, and that makes a big difference for me personally.
Okay, that's great. And about the static stretching, do you do it after the workout, like immediately, or like you do it also throughout the day, doing some stretches here
Um,
and there?
I like to stretch before bed. That's like another. It's something that really calms me down in general, because it
Hmm.
forces me to go into and focus on my breathing. Because I'm like, I don't know what it is about it. Honestly, I think that it could potentially be that I'm more in tune with myself. Thus, I'm focusing more on my breathing. But it's just kind of a one-to-one thing for me personally. So I like to stretch in the evening, and then I like to stretch. Not, I wouldn't say it's like immediately post training, as it helps me get my heart rate down so I can come in and eat faster. To be brutally honest with you, because I want to get to my meal because I'm hungry, and I don't want to have to wait for my heart rate to come down. And so stretching is one thing that like lets me bring my heart rate down a little bit faster. And so I think that's a little bit of a cheat code with me training at home, because I'll be paying attention to my watch and kind of just watching my heart rate come down. I'm like, I just want to eat. I want to eat. And for the listeners, what I'm wanting to do before I start to consume my post workout meal is to let my heart rate get back down or
Yeah.
roughly in the ballpark of my resting heart rate. And so that's the main reason that I'm trying to wait for my meal. Some of you are probably like, what do you mean, man? Just eat your stupid meal. I'm waiting for my heart rate to get back down in that ballpark within like 5 to 10 beats of my resting heart rate to allow for me to consume that meal. And the stretching allows for me to get there significantly faster.
Yeah, it is important to be eating in a calm state since otherwise, I don't know if that's anecdotal or like evidence, but eating when you're in a calmer state helps you like absorb food way better than if you're
Much
under
better.
stress, like under, like imagine like if you're rushing to go to work in the morning and just you have everything like eating sporadically kind of foods like and stuffing things in your mouth. It's not a very practical and healthy way to do things. Okay, so yeah, it was pretty interesting about stretching, and I watched recently a vlog of a push session of yours that
Yeah.
was pretty interesting. So you mentioned the leg training session, so it will be pretty cool, in my opinion, to film that as well, since uh, it just want to see that like
Yeah.
in a video.
No,
Uh,
we'll have to film a leg session. The I think the next one that we're filming is and the other thing with the push session is that it was the first session that I had filmed like that in a while. So I was pretty, I don't know if I was uncomfortable, but I definitely wasn't like training because I was kind of in the groove of like talking to the camera, still
yeah.
training. And so I'm excited for future filming for those, to be a little bit more in the zone and just let me train and not giving like tips like right away because I was in the mindset of like, well, we're already here. I'm just going to start spewing out tips as they come to my mind throughout this. And so yeah, thank you for that. I'm excited to film a leg session. I'm excited to I think the next vlog had a little bit of like back training in there too.
Yeah, it had some,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I think I'm getting more and more comfortable. We've had the creative team here for 3 months now, and so it's getting more and more comfortable every because we film every week. We film 2 days every week, and so it's slowly but surely coming together and getting a little bit more confident and all those different things.
Yeah, you also mentioned in the video itself that I believe on the last top set on the incline bench that that was not the performance you were expecting, and like you, based on that, on the camera presence and the fact that
Yeah,
you're being filmed. But yeah,
yeah,
it's strange like being filmed, talking to the end. Yeah, it's not
yeah.
that
It's
easy.
it's a challenge for sure. It's more to it than than most would anticipate. I will say that with us recording as much as like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok content, I know we're getting way off topic here, but doing all those
No worries.
things, we're doing all those things at once. I have to be so cognizant of like not missing, something because there's been like information that we've shared and then I'll have someone DM me and like, "Hey, you said this." And I'm like, "I didn't really mean that." It was like that was like the 15th piece of content that I made that day and I misspoke one word and then but it could be the only thing that someone sees. So that's like the hardest thing within the content is just making sure that you're articulating yourself and not, slipping on singular
Yeah.
words because everyone's just like picking up on everything. So,
True, true. They get it out of the context and like
oh
for
my
one
gosh.
word, like they tearing
Yes.
you apart. Like it's amazing.
Especially TikTok, because then on TikTok they'll just take like one of the girls or someone who had uh, said something about that I had a video I had made. She took like 3 seconds of a art like the full video. There was a full video. Then we clipped it for TikTok for like 15 seconds of this
Hmm.
like 7-minute video. She took like 3 seconds of this 7-second clip and then like tore me apart for these like 3 words that I said in that 3 seconds. And I'm like, okay, here's the whole video. Like this will make way more sense if you watch the whole video.
True, true, true.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the risk of social media, by the way.
Oh
But
yeah,
and then
100%.
you want to be a coach, but then you need to build a website, you need to do social media and stuff, and in the end, like you need to know everything. But
Yeah.
that's the risk. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's don't go very too out of topic here, and wanted to also touch base on something that I wanted to say for last, not because it's the least important one, but um, I feel that it will take us like more time to discuss, and this specifically deloads, because deloads are a very important part of recovery, in my opinion. But I wanted to hear your opinion on how exactly you program them for your clients. Do you plan them in their training sessions, or let's say you apply the so-called reactive deloads? Given that in the specific session someone is not feeling good and they apply deload, and then in the next day or the day after, if they are fine, they are just going on schedule. So first, what is your opinion on deloads? How do you use them? And generally your advices on deloads for our listeners.
So with deloads, I will program them in to the client's training.
Hmm.
Now, is that every single time have I planned it perfectly for that deload to be at the right time? Not always. There's going to be times where we can push a little bit further within the training to allow for them to train harder before we need that deload. There's also times in which I've planned it too late and we need to pull it in a little bit earlier. So I would say that I'm reactive in the aspect of taking biofeedback and utilizing when needed, but there are going to be ones that are planned, but it may need to move every so often. And so how I utilize deloads is going to be very dependent on the client. And so what I mean by that is that the depending on the client in terms of if they have a good understanding of how to utilize RPE or RIR, will utilize and be in the gym for that time duration. So I'll back off of volume. I'll probably cut it in half and allow for them to still train, but the RPE is going to be lower. We're not going to be taking sets to failure, those different factors. There's some individuals that are like, dude, all I've got is all gas, no brakes. There's no understanding of RPE, RIR. I'm just wanting to train to failure. I'm not going in the gym if I can't go balls to the wall. And it's like, respect. I get it. I've lived that life. I understand how that feels.
Yeah.
I will, then we'll take a week off. And some individuals will take a week off rather than taking the decrease in overall volume, and that's okay too. The main difference for that person who's going to take the week off is that you just need to decrease the volume when you get back. So when you're going through that full week off, all you're going to do is that, let's say that the person who was taking the deload, maybe they're jumping in at like 14 or 15 sets per muscle group within that next phase. For instance, that person who's taking the week off, maybe we start closer to 10 or 12 sets per muscle group in that next phase to allow for them to get acclimated. It's still going to be lesser volume. So it's still kind of a deload, if you will. But I treat it as almost a buffer because they're still able to train harder because they're in the thought process of I'm maxing out every single set. I'm giving every set my all type mentality. So it's still going to be some great sets, but they're overall not going to have as much volume when they get back, and then it'll titrate up as we go.
Okay. And for yourself, are you applying the same principle, or like you're supposed to do also every time, and if you break, then
So, so for myself, one thing that we utilize for me is that we are going to undulate the training within different training blocks. So I'll have hypertrophy, I'll have
hmm.
strength based blocks, I'll have endurance based blocks as a whole, and our goal is to kind of deload from each of those blocks, basically utilizing the other. And so trying not to crisscross them too much within the different intensity parameters and those different factors. And so each of them is going to serve as kind of a deload from one another. Now, that does not mean that I'm not having a deload in which I'm backing off of volume, those different factors. But within that, I will take certainly weeks. And really for me, with our travel schedule, my work, and those different things, it more so gets oriented around when I have crazy times within travel, or I have crazy times within work in general where I just need time away from the gym, or now maybe just have like 3 full body training sessions that I'm going in and I'm in there for like 30 to 35 minutes, getting in, getting out, and then getting back to whatever I need to attend to type scenario. So at this point in my life, and I think this is a lot of people, as they get into adulthood, they've got kiddos, they're doing whatever. It almost happens organically just because of life in general, whether that be for vacation or that be through busy seasons of work, or that be that the kiddos have 9 million practices to get to after school and you've got to
Hmm.
lug them around and be your own Uber service for an entire week. That could be your reality. And so if you're in that scenario, don't feel as though that you have to program in deloads. I'm sure life is going to hand you your own deloads
True.
as time goes on here. And I think that that gives people peace of mind as well, because I know that a lot of people kind of beat themselves up. And I know that myself, when things really started to get kind of crazy for us and I had to take these steps back from my own training, I would beat myself up because it was like, I have to be training. I'm telling other people to be training. And it's like, well, this is, I mean, it's just not a reality for me to be able to always do that. And I gave me peace of mind of, well, this is kind of like my own deload, and I'm just getting right back into training when I'm available to, and those different factors.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, by the way, since people think and often put themselves in the hard place, like by themselves, judging too hard. But we have priorities, and sometimes we just need to take care of what we need to take care of, and things will get in uh, in our way. So it's important to be flexible, and that's something people should be having in mind. And during the deload phase, I just wanted to check real quick with you. How do you approach nutrition? Do you keep it as it is, or as it was in the last week of your cycle, or do you increase or decrease food in terms of quantity?
It it depends, and which I know is like the answer for everything, but I will say that
True.
it's dependent on the individual. I will say that it is going to be big on their appetite. So for individuals who have maybe pushed very hard within like maybe a hypertrophy or strength-based phase prior to going into this deload, they may have been in a place where they have accrued so much inflammation that it's actually affecting their digestion. And so by going into that deload, the inflammation is starting to peel off of them, and all of a sudden their hunger is like through the roof. And they're needing the calories to recover anyway. And so we'll keep their food high and allow for them to continue to eat throughout that week, because of the higher appetite levels, as well as just getting them into a restful state and letting them recover adequately during that week's time. There may be individuals who are going into a deload that maybe are not coming from like a super strenuous phase, and they're wanting to lose body fat in general. So we're looking at the total caloric expenditure heading into that deload. It may be in our best interest to decrease overall calories at that time. And you're going to have to assess things like your sleep, like your energy levels, and those different factors to understand, okay, I may not need to bring down my calories here because my sleep's being kind of hindered because I'm not getting, I'm going to bed kind of hungry. I'm waking up pretty hungry and a little bit irritable. I feel like I'm not having good energy throughout the day. It's probably going to be best for me to actually leave my calories where they were and just allow for me to have better energy throughout the day. Because I think that that's one thing that people may overlook is that yes, your caloric expenditure is down from a training standpoint, but that really is not a massive component of your caloric expenditure throughout the day. For most people, when you're just thinking about resistance training as a whole, it's not going to be this massive bolus of calories being expended in that time frame, and you're expending a lot more calories throughout the day. You know, out the other, gosh, 23 hours of your day, you're expending a lot more calories at that time, if you're training an hour a day.
Okay, okay, great, Alex. Thank you so much for that. And I believe that we covered what we have prepared in terms of the agenda for our podcast. But as a summary, I wanted for you just to pick up a few things in terms of fatigue management, as a few advices for our followers, sorry, and what for you will be like basics or fundamentals that they need to uh, take care of when it comes to their fatigue management and recovery.
Basics, I would say nutrition is number one, making sure you're getting adequate protein, making sure you're getting adequate carbohydrates, making sure that your sleep is awesome. making sure that your sleep is awesome, making sure that your training volume is adequate and not excessive. That's the big thing, making sure that you're getting a lot of bang for your buck within the exercises that you're selecting, and really challenging yourself within the exercises that you're doing or the sets that you're doing. Because it's very easy to get into the gym and be there for 2 hours and do 14 exercises at like 70, 60, 70% intensity and just kind of like mosey around, and you're
Yeah,
not really getting a whole lot done, but you're putting a lot of stress on your body, and you're not going to be able to recover a whole lot from that. And so you're going to be kind of spinning your wheels. So make sure that the work that you are doing is well constructed and is adequate and efficient with what you're trying to accomplish. I would say that those are kind of the three main things, and then taking care of your stress outside of training, because you've got a lot of other stress in your life, whether that be from work, your personal relationships, your kiddos, all those different aspects of your life. Got a lot of things going on, and so make sure that you're doing your best within your stress, and taking that in consideration. It's not just something to sweep under the rug. As a whole, like your stress is a big part that you need to take care of throughout your life, and that's going to be big too.
great. Well, that was an amazing summary. And again, Alex, I want to thank you for taking the time and having the opportunity to talk with you. I do know that the information we discussed will be very helpful for the people listening. And guys, don't forget to subscribe. I'll put Alex's information down in the description. You can check the content of Physique Development if you haven't already by our last two episodes with Sue and Austin, and give them a follow and go watch their amazing content since they put a lot of value in YouTube and their blog on physiquedevelopment.com.